This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for a little bit of entertainment background, maybe some gossip. Um, I don't know. We're going to see where Chrissi Poland takes us today. And Chrissi, welcome to New Cleveland Radio. And
Hey, Aaron,
as
thank you.
as I looked at your bio, um, I noticed that you have some sort of connection with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes. Yeah, I've gotten to perform at a few ceremonies.
How wonderful. Um, you know, when we were voting, to get the Rock Hall here,
Yep.
um, we all went a little bit crazy. I think we stuffed the ballot box, but that's how much we wanted it here. And as listeners know, you know, they don't do the induction ceremony here every year.
Right.
And so sometimes we feel a little bit cheated by that. But at least we do have the Rock Hall here that we can go visit, and so many great performances going on there. So,
Yes, it's such a stunning space too. I've had so much fun. Well, I've been a few times now just to be able to wander the halls and look at all of the things, the collections of stuff. It's just I could never get sick of wandering through that building. It's amazing.
it's unlike most museums because there's constantly a changing um, display going on. But
Right.
like you said, you might miss something the first time, and the next time you walk through it, it's like, I didn't see that before, or
Yes,
I didn't read that plaque before.
for sure.
So, when did you get interested in performing?
So this has been a little bug in my tummy for as long as I can remember. I mean, I was less than 2 when I started dance lessons just because my parents just noticed I loved to put on shows and do stuff and perform. And that was what was available in our little town. They thought, oh, maybe we'll sign her up for dance lessons. And that was sort of when it started for me, getting a taste of being on stage and working with an ensemble and creating some sort of a performance. And it just built and built ever since then, through my early years as a child into my teen years, doing productions and plays and starting my own bands, going to music school, moving to New York. It's just continued on from there.
Well, and what I'd like to share with our listeners is that we don't even realize there are the Chrissy Polands of the world a lot of the time, because you turn on the radio and what you hear on the radio, you assume, well, that's the music. That's all there really is.
Right.
And the reality of it is that that's not true.
Mhm.
Um, in every town, there is some sort of a music venue, and there are people who are making a living, even if their songs are not the ones that are played in the top 40. And
Right.
sometimes I enjoy listening to your music and other performers like yourself, because it's like, this is something that I'm not aware of, and yet I hear it and it's like, why don't I hear more of it?
Yes, it's so true. That's a great point. And especially in this day and age where it really, at a time not too long ago, the record labels and the radio stations controlled everything that everyone heard, and that was it. Nowadays, because musicians have been able to take back so much of the power of putting things out themselves, and you don't really need a record label now. You do have to be business savvy in order to cut through a lot of the white noise. There is so much great music available if you're willing to kind of dig and go through Spotify playlists or go through Apple Music. There is so much more that's available, way more than you're ever going to hear on the radio. So it's sort of a new day for discovering music in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I noticed what you said, if you go digging in those different medias, you can find the music. What I want to tell our listeners is, please pay for the media,
It's true.
because people like Chrissy, I mean, we don't see the hours that you put into writing, performing, getting things ready so that you can take it out onto the stage, so you
Yeah.
can record it. Um, you know, Many of us are a little bit blind to that. We just think, oh, yeah, You wake up one morning, oh, I have this idea. Oh, here's a song. Yep, I got the music for it. I'll go to the recording studio.
Right,
That's
of
it.
course. I think like it's a really good point, and I think anybody who produces anything in a creative idiom, whether it's me making music recorded or a designer making, the fall line, or an author who has a new book out, there's so much work that goes behind anybody who's creating something to put out into the world. And the more people are aware of that, and take that into account when they're consuming it. And it's hard to remember that in the day of instant gratification,
Right.
where everybody's just used to like press a button, hear the song, press a button, download the book, all that stuff. But if you're willing to really think about that and the work that goes into this, it's anybody who puts out materials, again, whether it's clothing or a book or a record, you can always go to that artist's website and download it and pay for it. Or you can order a vinyl copy if that's available, or order the hardcover book from the author's website. You're just doing a little bit more to help support that creative person and,
Absolutely.
move the ball forward for all creative people.
We try to, remind everybody of it because, like you said, it is so easy just to push the button or to have your friends say, here, it's on my phone, give me your phone, and you can have it in, less than a second. And it's
Yes,
like, oh boy, that's great. But again, we have to realize what goes into it.
for sure.
So you've been performing and learning how to perform since you were a little kid.
Mhm.
Um, what did your family really think when you started out?
Oh, they were just tickled by it. I think it was just funny to them that, my mom told me I would walk up to people. She would take me to the mall or something, nothing else to do on a suburban weekday sometimes. And I'd walk up to people when I was 2 and say, "Hi, my name's Chrissy. Do you want to hear me sing?" And she was like, okay. And I was a little bit of the oddball in my family in that, like, I was really the only one that was clearly, had a mindset of this is what I'm doing. Um, and they really supported it from, 6 or 7 years old. I wrote a show and I'm putting it on in the basement. Okay, they'll come down and watch everything. To, when I, got a little older and was in dance recitals and competitions and supporting me with that. And then when I started playing piano and writing songs and just supporting everything and realizing that this was something I was going to do in my life, that my family was always supportive of my passion and my dreams and my goals and made me feel like I could do this. So it was really important to me.
And, that's the key to real success.
Yes.
Um, we may want to do it personally, but if we don't get that support, a lot of times we start, um, getting that negative feeling. Am I as good as I really think I am? Should
Sure.
I really be doing that? Why do I deserve to be on the stage?
Yes.
Um, I remember when I went to college, I told my parents I was going into communications and broadcasting. And my parents looked at me and said, no, you're not. You're going
Oh.
to go get your teaching degree. You have to have a real degree. What would you do? There aren't women really on TV or on the radio. So don't waste your time.
Mm.
And I ignored them. And for the
For
first
you.
2 years, I took every class in my major. And I got my associate's degree. And I called them up and I said, would you come to graduation? They said, you're not graduating yet. You have 2 more years. What's going on? And I told them. And they were so disappointed in me back then because they looked around and they said, what are you going to do with this? And I looked at them and I said, I'll get a job. You know, I'll pour coffee and then somebody will hear my voice. Well, to make a long story short, it took a long time before I went back, completed my degree. And then my mother looked at me and she said, you should have done this right from the beginning. And
Mm.
it's like, really, mom?
No, no.
But back in my day, it wasn't the same. It was
Right.
more like, go get a job. And then if you want to do this, go do it on the side. I
Mhm.
think parents are a little bit more understanding today because if we don't let our children follow their dreams, they may not be successful in doing that mediocre job that we think they should get. So
Absolutely. And it creates self-doubt where there doesn't need to be self-doubt. Because, what you're really encouraging is that if you have a dream or a goal, you can realize those things. There's ways to realize those things, whether it's exactly how you imagine it or another version of how you imagined it. And creating that support in a young mind at the very beginning just can set you up for a lifetime of success.
absolutely. So your friends and family know you as a performer. You
Mhm.
have something new coming out, correct?
Yes, yes, I have a new album. It's actually an EP. It's 5 songs. It's coming out at the end of October, and we're doing every about every 6 weeks right now. We're doing a new single from it. So the single that's out now is called "Wanna Be You," and then I have another single coming out on September 3rd, which is called "Destination Home," and that's also the name of the EP. So we're doing little bits at a time as we go.
And how is it performing now that some places are opening and some places are starting to close down a little bit?
Yeah, it's very strange still. For musicians and everybody who works on a live show, there's so much more than what you see on the stage, from the
Right.
crew to the people who are running the venue, catering. It's just always huge operations. And everybody was affected equally, not just the musicians, but everybody who works in the medium. And, for a minute there with the vaccine, and it started to feel like, okay, by the end of the summer or fall, everything's going to be back. And it's just not. It's just this riding this wave. And, certain places, there's so much outbreak, and other places, it's a little bit more calm, but it's still navigating these unfamiliar waters of, okay, but is it safe to have 1,000 people in a closed space? Are we going to demand vaccination? It's just the Wild West right now. And
Right.
so some people are just saying it's too crazy right now. We can't pull it off, depending on the circumstances.
Sure.
Also, ticket sales are weird again, because for a minute everyone was like, yeah, let's go out, live music. And then we've, as musicians as a whole, as a community of friends are talking about this, you're noticing like less and less people are wanting to go to shows right now. Venues are noticing ticket sales starting to drop from a couple of months ago. And that's not sustainable, because then they can't pay their artists to cover their overhead.
Right.
So it's very like week to week. Nobody really knows what's going on right now. We're definitely not out of the woods with all this stuff.
And I think that's important for all of us to understand that, if we don't do our part in keeping you safe and your crew safe in the venues will close down.
Yep.
And so, like I said, we all have to do our part. My husband and I went to a big comedy show last week, and the way the venue has it, you can only sit with the people in your party.
Mhm.
So you either have to buy a table of two, a table of four, or a table of six.
Mhm.
And I heard people complaining. It was like, well, I used to, be able to come all by myself, and now I had to buy two tickets. And it's like, I know it's difficult, but
Mhm.
we're trying to keep us all safe, but we're trying to keep you safe so you can
Right.
keep doing what you do.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate side of some people's mentalities. Are just very, um, unfortunately, just, yeah, but what about me? And not really wanting to think of the collective situation. This is not, a business as usual problem that humanity has faced in generations.
Right.
So people aren't used to, like, what I do affects this person, because the viruses don't care what your
That's
thoughts
right.
are.
Yeah,
They're going to do what they do.
exactly.
So yeah, that's the real downside of all that.
So are you in New York City performing, or are you on
I
the
have performed some in New York. In the past 3 or 4 months, I've had shows. I was part of a very big show at the Beacon Theater called Love Rocks. It happens every year. It's a star-studded event. It's connected with the wonderful organization God's Love We Deliver, which provides food to people that are sick in New York City at no cost.
Wonderful.
Incredible organization. And so this concert benefits that organization this year. Always raised a ton of money for it. Last year, that was the last event that we did that happened in New York before everything shut down. I think we were doing the event, and that whole week it was like, what's going on? This is getting weirder. Now they're closing this, and they're saying you can only have half capacity. By the night of our show, they said no audience. We just streamed it. And then it was literally 24 hours later when everything was just shut down. Um, and then the first show back I did in New York since then was the same show this past June. So it took a year plus another few months to do the show again. They were allowed, I think, 1/3 capacity. So the Beacon holds 2,000 plus. So there weren't a ton of people there, all scattered about. Very, strict vaccination requirements for band, crew. It's a huge, hundreds and hundreds of people working on that show. So that was wonderful. It was great to be with, I'm part of the house band for that. It was great to be in the band, see all the artists again, but it was weird. It was just still like everyone was a little like, is this okay? Or what, everyone's on edge.
Right.
So it's kind of coming back in New York. We're doing shows in the smaller venues. City Winery has a vaccine mandate now. They have it throughout the state. So all of the venues, you feel a little bit more protected as an artist at this point. But as far as touring goes, when you go outside, it's like every place has a different thing, and you kind of don't know what's going on.
Absolutely. So again, tell us the name of the new EP.
Yeah, so the name of the EP is going to be Destination Home.
And can you tell us a little bit what comes behind this name?
Yes. So I started recording this project before COVID happened, and we weren't finished with it yet. And then once COVID hit, the people that I was working with, we had most of it recorded, but we all finished in our home studios, kind of flying files around. And it's so funny. It was making me laugh that I was calling it Destination Home, and that's like where we all were.
Right.
So it was a little fortuitous. But the actual recording and the songs on it is sort of a storytelling of my personal feelings on what I do, from touring to just being out in the world as a musician, as an artist, as a performer, and balancing that now with being a mother and having my daughter at home, and going from all to nothing when I have to go away, and how challenging that's been for me just internally to kind of grapple with finding the balance between the two things, and managing my own sadness about it when I have to be away from her.
Right.
And writing about it was really cathartic, and each song touches upon sort of a different piece of what that's all about for me.
It's interesting because I know there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of young women who are looking at you saying, oh, that would be so great to be traveling or whatever. And not even thinking about, leaving their family behind. I know back in the 90s, I was doing a lot of IT work, and every other week, I was on the road. And, on Sunday night, I would look at my son and say, I'll miss you for the week. And he would look at me and go, yeah, but I got dad, and he's a fun guy.
Right.
And I would leave with this heavy, heavy heart. But then every night he'd call me and it would be like, oh, I wish you were here because, he didn't give me a cookie for dessert or whatever. There was that torn feeling. I loved my work. I really did, but I was missing out on my child.
Yep.
So, it's a give and take.
Yep.
And you work through it. And when you're home, I'm sure you just like savor being at home as well.
I do. And this past year, that was one of the silver linings for me, is that when all the work outside of the home studio was taken away, I could just be with her, might be with my husband, be with my dog. We were just all together. And it was at a really wonderful time in her life, coming into toddlerhood, and just being all together, not missing anything. And there was a sense of relief in that way. And then over the past 6 months, a sense of a little bit of dread of being like, okay, the world is going to come back and I got to figure this out again, and figure out how I'm going to balance this, at least for this phase of my life. Like I have a
Right.
tour booked right now in the UK for September, and just my own nerves about what that means with COVID and being safe and then leaving my family. Like it's a definitely been a process of just in my own mind how my I'm not worried about her. She's got dad, she's got nanas, she's got a great babysitter, she's got her world. I'm setting it up as best I can, and I can cook a bunch of food and leave it in the freezer and parent from afar as best I can. It's just about my own feelings of being away from home, trying
Absolutely.
to balance that out. And I live same as you. I love my work. I love what I do, and just finding a way to work through it and knowing it's going to be hard no matter what. There's no
Right.
way around it.
Absolutely. But you got to take care of you as well, because if you
Mhm.
don't take care of you, um, then, everything else just doesn't go together. So as you're taking
I
care of
agree.
you, your
Yeah, it's
daughter's going to
important.
be fine. You-
Yeah. And it also shows like she's not going to get it right now, but she's going to know someday that, oh, I can be a mom and have a family and I can have my career, and I just have to work through it, and I have to surround myself with people that support my vision and support what I do, and I can do that. Whether it's hard or not, it can be done, and sometimes that gives me a sense of peace knowing that like I'm gonna show this by example, and I like that, and I try to stay in that headspace.
That is terrific. Well, today we've been talking to Chrissi Poland, and we're going to watch for you on um, probably Spotify and all the other venues where your music can be heard.
That's it.
And again, everybody, pay that little bit of money that it costs to stream the music so that Chrissy will keep performing for us. We
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you. Have a great day and enjoy England. You should have a great time there.
I will so much. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully, talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye bye now.
Take care. Bye.